Good evening, students. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
The PPT screen is visible to you all. For the first few classes, we were discussing about the Unit 2, Object-Oriented Programming with C++. In the previous class, we discussed what is class, how to define a class, the access specifiers of class, the difference between structures and classes. Then we started with class constructor and destructors. And in the previous class, we discussed copy constructor and how to create copy constructors using constructors and destructors. The screen is visible. So we know the definition of class, how to define a class, the syntax of creating a class, then how to create the objects from the classes, creating multiple objects, and the C++ classes and objects example program like student creating the student class and student objects, and creating more than one student object. Then we saw The employee class as example for C++, storing and displaying the employee objects. So here we created two employee objects, employee 1 and 2. Then we saw the various concepts associated with the classes and objects like what is class member, class access modifier, class access modifiers, then the role of constructors and destructors in creating and destroying the objects, what is copy constructor, how it is creates the duplicates copies of the same object. So in today's class, we are going to discuss about array of objects. Then we will discuss about what is friend class and friend functions. So if you take the definition of friend functions, a friend function is a permitted full access to private and protected members of a class. So in real life, every human beings may have the friends. So in that case, the role and the rights of a friend is different from the family member. So if you take a class, the various class members and uh, member functions have the rights to access the data members and member functions based on the access specifiers like private, public, and protected. So when we discussed about the protected access specifier, we discussed the protected members can be accessed by the friend functions. So if a non-member function like friend function can access the function, the variables and data members of a class if it is friend to the particular class. So that we will discuss in detail. Then already we discussed what is inline function and a outline function. So we have implicit functions and explicit functions. If a function is declared and defined within the class, we will call it as inline function. Within an inline function, the compiler tries to expand the code in the body of the function in place of call of the function. So like macros in C, the inline functions, wherever the function is declared and defined within the class declaration, if the number of lines are very less, in that case, we will go for inline function. And when the functions are called in the main program, they can be executed within the code. So then we have this pointer. So this pointer, every object has a special pointer, this which points to the object itself. So every object can be accessed through this pointer. We know pointers are variables that can store the address of another variable. So the pointer variables will store the address of another variable. Here the pointer this is used to store the address of an object. So every object will have the pointer called this. This pointer will have the address of the particular object. Then we discussed pointers to C++ classes. So like call by reference and call by value, that time itself we discussed what is pointer and how the pointers are used to access the variables through the reference. A pointer to a class is done exactly the same way a pointer to a structure is. In fact, a class is really just a structure with the functions in it. Static members of a class, both data members and functions of a class can be declared as static. We know static and dynamic members. Static means they are fixed variables, and dynamic means they will be created and destroyed during execution. In unit 1 itself, we discussed about access specifiers. We have three types of access specifiers in C++, private, public, and protected. Just I am recollecting the information. So out of 99, only 54 joined. So I'm going to take the attendance within another 10 minutes. Again, I will take the attendance once again by end of the class also. So in the previous class, we discussed about constructor. Am I audible? The screen is visible. All of you save your number with, I will generate the attendance from the Zoom class. I will not take attendance. So all of you save your name along with the registration number and name. I will download the attendance from the Zoom class attendance. I will not take the attendance through VTop. So all of you save your number with your name and registration number and name. Then only you will be given attendance. Okay, what is the role of constructor? Govinda. Govind.
Yes, ma'am.
What is constructor? What is its role in C++ classes and objects? Okay, define constructor. What are the special characteristics of a constructor? Next one, Devender. How the constructor is different from other normal member functions? What are the special characteristics of a constructor? Last two classes we were discussing about constructors and destructors. Constructors alone one class, destructors alone one class. 1.5 hours we discussed. So we saw the line class, employee class, default constructor, copy constructor, implicit constructor, explicit constructor, parameterized constructor. Devender, what is parameterized constructor? Other Tyagi, what is parameter? Shukla, 24 MEI 10098. What is parameterized constructor? What do you mean by parameters? The parameters are nothing but the variables which we are going to pass to the function. If the parameters are passed to a constructor function, if a constructor function takes parameters as arguments, whenever the object is created, the parameters will be initialized with some value based on the statements what we are going to write in the constructor function. So a parameterized constructor is nothing but the constructor function. We know very well the constructors are special member functions. They takes the same name as class name. And the constructors will be called automatically whenever a new object is initialized or created. And parameterized constructors are here the constructor function employee. Our class name is employee and the constructor function is employee. It takes the parameters int I, string n, float s. So the formal variables I, n, s is assigned to ID, name and salary. So when we create the object employee 1 in the main program, the parameterized constructor will be called automatically, and the values what we are assigning to the as arguments here will be assigned to the variables int I, string n and float s, salary. The same way when we create the second object, the parameterized constructor will be called, and the values what we are passing to the object will be passed to the formal arguments, the parameters. So in the previous class itself, we discussed what is destructor. The destructor also a special member function. The destructor also a special member function. It takes the same name as class name, and it is used to destroy the objects once you come out from the main program. So the objects which are created through the constructor or the memory which are allotted to all the variable, all the class objects will be deallocated or reallocated or freed when we exit from the program. Say for example, in the previous class itself, we discussed, we have the class called line, and we have the constructor function line, and the destructor function, it takes the same name as class name along with the special symbol, tilde symbol before the function name. So the class name, function, constructor name and destructor name all are same. The difference between constructor and destructor is a tilde symbol is added in before the destructor function. So have you gone through the previous class topics? Any doubt? In the previous class itself, we discussed there are two types of constructors, default copy constructor and user-defined constructors. Default constructors are implicit constructors. They will be called, they are defined by the C++ compiler. So a constructor is if the constructor is overloaded, used to and initialize the object from another object. So the copy constructors are, if you want to maintain more than one more than one copy of the object, we can go for copy constructors. Within copy constructors, we have default copy constructor. It is created by the compiler. It is compiler defined, and user defined one the programmer or the developer has to create. So in the previous class itself, we saw the class A and how the copy constructor is. So here we have class A and we have the constructor called A because it takes the same name as class name. And here the parameters for the constructor A is address of X, where X is of class A type. So here the object X as well as and the constructor function A will have the same value. Say for example, a copy constructor can be called in the following way. We can say the class A object A2 equal to A1, where the object A1 and A2 both belongs to the class A. And the content of object A1 and content of object A2 both will be same. So any doubt so far? Have you gone through, say for example, here, we taken the class called demo, and within the class we have the variables AB and pointer star P, and we have the constructor function demo. Here the P is the pointer variable, P equal to new int. So the object is created dynamically. Say the people, those who are going to join hereafter, I will not allow. The people, those who joined now alone will be given attendance. And here in the main program, we are creating, our class name is demo. We are creating the object called D1. And the object D1 takes the value 456. And we are creating the object D2. The object content of object D1 is assigned to D2. So here, if you display the values of A is 4, 5, B is 5, and the content, third object star P is 7. Say for example, we have the objects D1 and D2, both belongs to the class called demo. And the content, the values assigned to object D1 is A is 4, B is 5, and P is the pointer variable. It takes the address of address, where the address is 7, and we are copying the content of object D2 equal to D1. So D1 is assigned to D2. So the content of object D1 and D2 both will be same. Both will have the data members A, B, P. A and B will take the values 4 and 5. P is the pointer variable. It takes the value 7. Any doubt in the previous class topics?
No, ma'am.
So if you take the differences between copy constructor and assignment operator, So copy constructor also copies the content of one object into another object, and by using the assignment operator equal to or double equal to is logical comparison. What is the difference between copy constructor and an assignment operator means? Here copy constructor is an overloaded constructor. Every class will have its own default constructor, parameterized constructor, or it can have the copy constructor. So when the constructor function is overloaded, because it takes more than one form, implicit constructor, explicit constructor, and copy constructor. Anyhow, copy constructor is additional constructor. Every class and object will have its own constructor function, implicit constructor function. So other than the default constructor function, we are creating one more constructor function with the same name as class name. So both the implicit constructor function, copy constructor, and class name will have the same name. So it means the constructor function is overloaded. So the copy constructor is an overloaded constructor, but assignment operator is it is a bitwise operation. So it will copy the content. The values will be copied as it is. So it initializes new objects with the existing object. So the new object will take the value of existing old object. Here it assigns the value of one object to another object. The syntax of copy constructor is class name, constant class name, address of object name. So here from the class we are creating an object. That object is assigned to new object. But in the assignment process, what we will do, class name, classes a comma b, where a and b are objects. We will say object b equal to object a, just assignment process. So the each and every data member in a b object will be copied to a object. So our next topic is called array of objects in C++. What is array of objects? So when we create or initialize objects from an existing class, we can create one object, two object, or we can create, say in our class, if you are creating an students object, we have to create 99 objects or 100 objects. So it means if you want to, depending upon the situation or depending upon the need, a particular class initializes one object, two object, or 10 objects, we can go for A1, A2, A3, or object one, object two, like that. So if you want to create an more than 10 or 100 objects, in that case we can go for array of objects. Here in array of objects, all the objects in an array will belongs to the same class. Like array of other user defined data types, an array type class can also be created. So we can create an array of class can be created by using the array type of class contains the objects that the class and its individual elements. So the type of from the particular class will create array of objects, and thus an array of class type is known as array of objects. From a class will create from a particular class type will create more than one object. Instead of mentioning the objects as independent objects, we can make it as array of objects. An array of objects is declared in the same way as an array of built-in data types. So we are creating built-in data type or user-defined data type now. The same way, like creating an array of integers, array of float, array of characters called string, or array of double numbers, array of subjects. We can create a class containing a number of objects like student objects, line objects, employee objects, like that. What is the syntax of creating an array of object means? So the syntax is we have to mention the class name followed by user defined array name and the size of the array. So the size of the array will be mentioned within power brackets semicolon. Say for example, we are taking a class called my class. Within the my class, we have an data member called x. We have member functions setx and getx. So in setx, we are assigning the value for the function setx takes the argument I. The formal arguments I is assigned to the data member X. And the same way in getX, it returns the value of current value of X. Say for example, in the main program, we are creating our class name is my class. Our class name is my class. From the my class, we are creating object of 4. So we are creating 4 objects. So here it means object OBS of 0, OBS of 1, OBS of 2, OBS of 3, and OBS of 4. So totally we are creating 5 objects. So if you create more than one object, or if you mention the objects in array form, like A of 10, matrix of 4. So here, yeah, objects of 4 represents array of objects. So to read or access all the array objects, we are making use of an for loop for I equal to 0, I less than 4. So the array index starts from 0 to 3. So it will access 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 objects. And the array objects also, array index also starts from 0th index. So we'll have object of 0, object of 1, object of 2, object of 3 and 4. So we are calling the function set x of I. So the function set x is called for object 1, object 2, object 3, object 4, like that. So it is called for 4 times. And using for loop for I less than 4, I plus plus, we are calling the function through the object, we are calling the function getX. So through setX, we are reading the values for all the 4 objects, and through getX, we are displaying the value of all the 4 objects. Say for example, we created an array of 0, sorry, object of 0, object of 1, object of 2, object of 3, totally 4 objects. The values of through getX, we are displaying the values because initially the array value, the value for I is not initialized. So it takes the I value as 0 to 4. So I starts from 0, 1, 2, 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 objects are displayed. So any doubt what is array of object? Attendance will be taken based on your Zoom class recording. Okay, so how long you stayed in the class. So all of you change your name along with your name and registration number. Abhishek, A, Adil Khan, everyone mention your name along with the registration number. So the attendance will be downloaded from the Zoom recordings. So array of objects, when a class is defined, only a specification of the object is defined. No memory or storage is allocated. So the memory for the objects will be to use the data and access functions in the class. You need to create the objects. So by creating the objects, we are assigning the or allocating the memory to store the values. While creating the object only, the memory will be created. And how the memory allocation done for array of objects means different methods to initialize array of objects with parameterized constructor is we can make use of mail of function. To avoid the call of non-parameterized constructor, we can make use of, say I told you what is the already half an hour over, now only people are joining. So if you are going, coming, exiting, rejoining, I will mark you absent. Okay. Based on Zoom recordings only, attendance will be given. And the Zoom recording is, it will end in another 10 minutes because it is not licensed one. Classes will be for 40 minutes and it will be end in another 10 minutes. Already 30 minutes over. Again, you have to join back with the same Zoom link. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
The class will end in another 10 minutes because already 30 minutes over. Ruchita, Mahajan. So the class will end in another 10 minutes. Once again, you have to join the class because our class is 1.5 hours. You have to join back the class with the same Zoom link. So what is the role of the function malloc? It is an C++ compiler built-in function. So to avoid call of non-parameterized constructor, use malloc method. Malloc or memory allocation method in C++. Malloc is called memory allocation method. Is used to dynamically allocate a single large block of memory with a specified size. So if you make use of the malloc function in C++, it will allocate dynamically memory to the objects based on the size what we are mentioning. Say if you are saying student objects s of 100. So if the student object is having all the student details like name, registration number, marks, and 5 subjects details, and functions like read, display, marks, calculate, CGPA, all those things. So the memory will be allotted for each and every data member, and every object will be reserved memory space dynamically when we enter the values for the objects. Say for example, here we are allocating the memory dynamically, dynamic memory allocation using malloc function. Say for example, we have the function called class called test. Test is our class name. And within the class test, we have the variables x and y, data members. Data members x and y is there. And we have the constructor function, parameterized constructor called test. Function called print. One more normal function print is there. In the main program, we are allocating memory for the dynamic array of size n using malloc function. Our class name is called test. And for the type of class test type, we are creating an using malloc function size of test star n. So it means we are allocating memory size of n memory locations of object type test will be allocated using malloc function. So while calling the constructor for each index of array, we are calling the function test of I. So when we call the constructor function test of I comma I plus 1 using the malloc function, object while creating the objects, memory will be allotted. So we are creating or allocating the memory for all our test class objects using malloc function. And here we are creating a dynamic array of size n. So here the array size will be read from the end user. So here we are reading the array size. So we are using the variables x and y, and the constructor takes the value of x and y, and the data members address is accessed through this pointer. While printing the values of the data members x and y is printed, and in the main program, we are creating memory or allocating memory for the test class objects. An array of objects is created using malloc function. The size of operator is used to, we are using the malloc function along with the size of operator, and test class based on test class, n number of objects will be allocated. And we're using, because we are creating a n number of objects dynamically during runtime using malloc function, based on the n value, all the objects will be printed. So we have the constructor function as well as the print function. The print function prints the values of the objects, and the constructor function is used to create the objects. Any doubt how the malloc function is used to allocate memory to the objects dynamically during runtime? Say here, here in the using print function, the array index I and the print the current value of object. So the array index 0, the current object is 1. The array index is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 objects are created and the values of the objects are, they are incrementing the values from 1 to 3. Because while printing the values, we are printing the array index A of I of print. So the values of in print, what we are displaying, X value as well as Y value, where X is the array index and Y is the object value. And we can allocate memory to the objects dynamically using new operator also. The new operator denotes a request for memory allocation. So if you use the new operator for memory allocation, that is called dynamic memory allocation. So memory allocation can be done to the objects by using new operator on the heap. Heap structure means internal memory allocation. It is sufficient. So the Zoom class will end in another 2 minutes. You have to join back. If sufficient memory is available, the new operator initializes the memory and returns the address of the newly allocated and initialized memory to the pointer variable. Here, the pointer variable is the pointer of type data type. Data type could be any built-in data type, including array or user-defined data types like structures or classes. Say, for example, the dynamic initialization using new keyword require on non-parameterized constructor. If we add a parameterized constructor, so we will use the dummy constructor for it. Say, for example, we are creating the program hash include and using namespace std. Our class name is test. So within that we have the two private variables. If you are not mentioning the access specifier, by default it is private. We have two variables x and y, and our constructor function test, class name is test, constructor function is name is test. It is a dummy constructor because no executable statements, and we have one more parameterized constructor. It is called a test of x comma y. So we have two constructor function, test without any instruction and dummy constructor, another constructor with parameters x and y. So the constructor function is defined two times. It performs two operations. The one name test is performing two operations. So the constructor function is overloaded. And here we are going to use the new operator to allocate the memory. So dynamic memory allocation. So we are using this operator to access the objects. Using print function, we are displaying the values of x and y. The main program, within the main program, we are creating memory, or we are creating the objects using new operator, new test of n, where test is our class name. N means n objects are created. An array of n objects is created dynamically using new operator. And it is created dynamically by using star array. A test is our class name. Star array is the array of pointers, and using new operator test of n, where n number of objects that belongs to array of n objects that belongs to test class is created. So to access all the array elements, we are using for loop I equal to n, and through the constructor function, parameterized constructor, we are assigning the value of to array, and using print function, same as previous program, we are displaying the value for I equal to 0 to n I plus plus. So any doubt how the memory is allotted using new operator dynamically and as well as using malloc function? Any doubt how memory allocation for